Welcome to the Film Florida podcast. I'm John Lux, and I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. Before we get to our interview, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the Film Florida podcast. If you're not already a member of Film Florida, please consider joining at filmflorida.org. If you like what you hear on the podcast, please consider going to our website and donating $20.22 for our 2022 fundraising campaign. We also have a Film Florida merchandise page. Visit filmflorida.creator-spring.com to purchase Film Florida t-shirts, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, and more. Frank Licari is an Emmy Nominated actor, TV host, comedian, writer, producer, and director. His credits span 30 years of work in theater, film, and TV, including recurring and guest starring roles on network and cable television, feature films, and off-Broadway theater. He's the owner of Quite Frankly Entertainment, an independent production company, and he's the host of On the Town in the Palm Beaches, as well as the Palm Beaches Student Showcase of Films. We talked to Frank about all of those topics and more on this episode of the Film Florida podcast. Here's my conversation with Frank Licari. Welcome to the Film Florida podcast, Frank.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. It's great to be here with you.
Let's start kind of with your origin story. Where did you come from?
Well, I grew up in a small town called Guelph, about 45 minutes southwest of Toronto. I was raised there by two Italian immigrants. So I grew up speaking Italian in the family, and really kind of English, I guess, is kind of my second language because I didn't really speak English until I was about 4 or 5. Grew up in this Italian-Canadian, the equivalent of the Italian-American household, with in a neighborhood that was very interesting. It was the center of the Italian mafia for the Americans. So I see a lot of Chicago behind you there. Chicago, the Chicago mob and the New York mob all used this town as their respite. So the grandparents of these families, which I didn't know at the time growing up, because my family was not in that. I grew up with all these, mob families. So the Silvestri, the Lucchese's, all these families. And so that's how I grew up in this Italian neighborhood. It was about 70% Italian when I was growing up. So it was an interesting upbringing.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
And so how did you find your way into the entertainment industry?
So I started in music. My father started me in music really young. So I started doing, believe it or not, I played accordion as my first instrument because we're Italian, of course.
Okay.
So I may or may not have been doing some polkas as a kid, but I started getting into music. My brother was in music. We started performing as almost a novelty act as kids. And I transitioned over to rock music because I discovered Van Halen and Led Zeppelin and all that great stuff. So I became a bass player and a singer. And that was kind of my preteen into my teen years. I was always a class clown. So my English teacher suggested that I try out for a school play when I was, when I first got into junior high. And I did it, and I got the bug. And lo and behold, 6 years later, I was playing sports. I was a jock of sorts. I was the captain of the basketball team, captain of the volleyball team. I was on my way to, I was also started writing. So I was on my way to go to Windsor University to play basketball and volleyball, and minor. I was going to major in English and minor in drama. And my English teacher said, there's this acting school in New York that's auditioning in Toronto. You should audition. And I said, oh, come on. I'm not, it's never going to happen. She's like, oh, no, you're not going to get in, but it's good practice for when you go to university because you have to audition and you've never auditioned. So I go and audition. I was all prepared I had a scholarship to play basketball, and I ended up getting a scholarship to this acting school. And I moved to New York on my 19th birthday, and immediately was a playwright and an actor as I got there because I had already been writing, and I'd won a drama competition with one of the plays I wrote in Canada. And then I brought it to New York, and I started that way. I won a competition in New York, and then I never went back home.
And now on the acting side, your first, looking it up, your first acting credit on IMDb was for a small uncredited gig on Law and Order. What do you remember about that kind of first big experience?
Well, it's funny, as an actor in the city, I did 2 years of theater, right? Like I was just doing theater and hitting it hard and doing all this stuff. But every actor in New York always wants to break into film and TV. So I got an agent out of my drama school, like out of my, final year, and he started sending me out. And I got this gig, and I was so excited. I was going to be on television, right? And so it was basically a glorified featured part, but at the time I didn't have any lines, right?
Mhm.
I didn't know this. But then the director gave me a couple lines when I was on set, and I thought, oh my gosh, I made it. This is it. Like, I am going to hit the big time. And then that didn't make it to the final cut of the show. I don't think. I think I just, I walked by a couple times. I'm the victim's brother that they don't interview. And so it ended up being uncredited. I don't know why, though. I still can't figure it out to this day, but it is what it is. And that's how it started. But it was very exciting. And I got to work with Jerry Bach. I don't know if you know that actor.
Yep.
And
Yep.
at the time, and it was one of these shows that was revered in New York. It was the show. Every actor did Law and Order. That if you were an actor and you were in New York, you were doing Law and Order. But it was fun. I got to, hang with this amazing cast. And then I went back to my obscurity. So
the rest is history, right?
The rest is history. Yeah, it's not great history, but it's history.
Well, between then and now, though, you've had some really great roles in TV series like Nashville, Blue Bloods, currently in the Hardy Boys series, which is on Hulu, and among others. So talk about the process of jumping into a series or a film where the surrounding cast and crew may have been on the projects for some time, but you necessarily haven't really. And so you want to add value, but you also want to fit in. How does that balancing act work for you?
Yeah, you just hit it. It's about, I think I learned early on, because I obviously being on a lot of shows and a lot of sets, you see actors come on, and I always was cautious never to be that guy who came on set and was like, oh, let me be that, smarmy guy who wants to talk to the director and give notes and, to have a repartee. And I realized quickly, it's like, it's not about you. Right. It's you're literally a supporting cast member, and you do exactly what a supporting element does. You hold things up as they give them to you, and then you step back into the shadows. So I learned quickly to just assimilate, come in. But I will tell you this. One of the things I always used to tell my acting students is go in being uber prepared. And that being, they don't have the patience to wait for you. Like if Brad Pitt's on set and he forgets a line, or he decides he's not feeling the greatest in that scene, they'll give him another take. They'll give him another. You got to go in and know exactly why you're there. Everything, know everybody's lines and be the most prepared out of anybody, because the patience factor with me coming on set in some of the stuff I've done is not always like, the greatest. You want to get in and get out and make it easy for them and make them want to work with you again.
Yeah. Set them an example by being, really prepared and low maintenance, be low maintenance.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
But you've had a number of really good roles on Florida-based projects like Burn Notice, Graceland, Walt Before Mickey, Bloodline. Do you have a favorite Florida project that you've worked on?
Well, I will tell you, Graceland was the first recurring role really that I worked on, and I got 3 episodes on that show, and that was really fun. But little known fact, I actually co-wrote and co-produced Walt Before Mickey in Florida. So that's actually my favorite project, because I actually took that film from the beginning to the end. I cast it, I wrote it, I produced it, and I was involved in the post-production of it up in New York. So that kind of became the first full-length film that I had that much to do with. I'd done a lot of film before that, but it was never that much control over a project. So I have to say that Walt Before Mickey's probably my favorite Florida project in terms of film. Yeah.
And what's the backstory on that? Like, how did you get so involved in that?
So funny. A friend of my wife's had called her up. My wife is also an actress, and he called her to cast this movie. And I said to my wife, I'm like, have you ever cast anything? And she said, no. And I had, because I had my own theater for many years, and I'd done a ton of stuff in New York. And so I'd done some casting. I said, you know what, let me help you with this. Well, then they sent the script, and I read the script, and I'm a writer. So I read the script and I said, wow, this is terrible. This is really bad. I said, there's no way. Where are they getting the money for this? And of course, it's about Walt Disney. So one of the partners was fairly well off and had the money. And so I asked them, I said, listen, do you want me to help you a little bit with the script? As it got down the road, they were like, oh, we didn't know you did this and that and this and that. And I became the producer of the project, basically. So it just snowballed from helping them do a little writing to casting, then to producing the whole project. I hired the original director, the DP, got the locations done. I mean, it was one of those things. So
Yeah.
I had more experience than the executive producers who were putting the film on.
Nice. And then I saw in your credits, kind of an odd one. You were a Blue Man in the Blue Man Group. Is that right?
That is right. Yeah. One of the greatest experiences of my life. Yeah. It's funny that came up recently because I watched the movie Tick, Tick, Boom, which is about Jonathan Larson and Rent, the creator of Rent, rather. Well, I was at a crossroads in my career in New York. I had been there. Well, I shouldn't say this. It's embarrassing to say after 6.5 years, I was losing patience, but I was in New York for 6 years. I was only 24 or 25. And I was like, this is it. If I don't get a big role, I'm done. One of those ridiculous things. Here I am 31 years later. But I said, that's it. So I ended up getting this audition for Rent. I get to the final callbacks for the replacement cast of Rent. Now, Rent in New York in 1997 was the thing. There was nothing better. Get to the final callbacks. I realized in the callback room before I went into the audition, I'm like, I'm not getting this. I'm the wrong look. I'm the wrong look for the part. And so I said, I'm definitely not getting this. I went back and I was so depressed to my agent. And she said, hey, I got an audition for you for this show called Blue Man Group. And I had seen the signs, with the blue eyes, the blue face and the whole thing. I said, I've never seen the show. I have no idea what it's about. She's like, well, it's a part music, part, comedy. I said, wow, well, that's right up my alley. Mm-hmm. So I don't see the show. I go in for the acting audition and I blow them away for some reason in the acting audition. The guys say to me, man, as an actor, you got this. Can you drum? And I said, I play 5 instruments. Drums are not one of them. Sure. I said, I don't know what to tell you. I said, but I'm musical. What do you got? Like, show me what you got. So they showed me some things. I said, I'm a hand drummer, but I've never played with sticks. I said, let me see the show. Well, they gave me tickets to the show and it blew me away. And so I went, I had a day job at the time. I quit my job. I told my agent, don't send me out for anything else. This is the show I'm getting. I quit my job and went back to my little 550 square foot apartment in New York. I got 2 big thick pillows. I got them to give me all the rudiments to the show. I got 2 big sticks and I drummed for about a month. And I went back into the audition and I got it. And I ended up doing the show for 1,100 shows, I think it was, for 3 years.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So that's the story of Blue Man. It's one of those life-changing moments.
And a lot of blue makeup.
A lot of blue grease paint, a lot of fun, a lot of great memories. I still am really good friends with most of the people that I did the shows with. A lot of them are still doing it, believe it or not. Yeah. But I left to start my own school in theater back in 2000. So
fun.
Which got me to Florida.
So as your career has evolved, you started your own company, Quite Frankly Entertainment, which is an independent production company where you've gotten more into writing and producing and directing, even though you were already doing it, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. How did that, come about where you actually kind of did this officially?
Right. I had one of the greatest film and TV acting teachers in the city of New York who told me, best advice he ever gave me. He said, don't ever stop producing your own stuff, no matter where you think you go. And case in point, when you see these stars, Clint Eastwood's the perfect example. They get big, they can write their own ticket. The first thing they do is they start their own production company and sort of are the creators of their own domains, so to speak. So I took that to heart. So in New York in the 90s, I started my own theater company and I had a theater company for about 5 years, produced a bunch of shows. Then I opened my own performing arts school and theater in Florida, which got me to Florida. But I've always been producing. And then finally, when I left to come back to New York, I had started my official film and TV production company in Florida and got away a little bit more from the theater. And that started, I guess, 11, 12 years ago. And now it's snowballed into some bigger projects of producing and directing some feature-length documentaries, which are currently in some festivals right now, and producing up a bunch of stuff. I've done a ton of work now. So with the company, so it's kind of cool. I've got a full-time employee that works for me, and we do what we do. So
yep. And you're also now the host of On the Town in the Palm Beaches with Frank Licari. Yep. Tell the audience what the show is and how you got involved with that.
Yeah, funny story about that as well. I moved back to New York from Florida. I'd lived in Florida for 13 years. And in Florida, I did a bunch of things, which I know we'll talk about shortly with the Film Commission. But I was moving back to New York. And on the day I moved back, I was in the moving truck unloading furniture at my new house in Jersey. And I get a phone call. And it's this person that says, "Hi, I'm calling from PBS." And I said, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And I was a donor to PBS.
Okay.
So I am assuming this entire time they're calling to get a donation. So this person says, I'm blah, blah. I'm the executive director of PBS in Miami. I said, "Oh, that's nice to meet you." She's like, "Well, we've got this new show and we're doing a joint venture with WXEL and WPBT2. And it's going to be the first show that we've created, original programming." I said, "Oh my gosh, that's so exciting for you guys. Hey, listen, I'm moving right now. So can I talk to you about this later? Because I'm in the middle." She's like, well, I said, "I already donate." She said, "Oh no, we want you to host the show." And I had this weird pause. I'm sweating and I'm like, "What?" She said, "Yes, we saw you host the Palm Beach County, this student showcase of films that you do. And we thought you'd be perfect. And the Film Commission is one of the sponsors. And they suggested you for the part that if you do it, they'll sponsor the show." And so it was this weird conversation. I said, "Well, I actually don't live in Florida anymore." "Oh," she said, "Oh, they said you were local." I said, "I was until about 24 hours ago." She said, "Oh my gosh." I said, "I'll tell you what, if you're able to make it happen where I can fly in and you'll take care of that and put me up, I'd be happy to do it. I would love it." And here we are 6 seasons later, and it's picked up some steam, and it's, it's one of the sort of fun respites I have in my career where I get to come down there. I explore a different city in Florida. I sort of tell the audience about the history, the nightlife, how to live, work, and play in a certain town. And recently, we've been even doing some different themes, like sort of talking about the history of Palm Beach County, the Hispanic heritage of it, the Black history of it, and neighborhoods. It's such a fun show, and I'm so glad that people are enjoying it that I'm still able to do it. So.
And it's on PBS in South Florida?
It's on PBS in South Florida. A couple of the episodes just went statewide, which is exciting.
Yeah.
And there has been talk to get it national, because I suggested to them, I said, this show is actually more important for people visiting Florida from outside of Florida than it is from the locals.
Right.
And a case in point, I was getting my mail one day here in New Jersey, and my mailman walks up the stairs and he goes, "Hey, you're the guy from that show." And I assumed he meant one of these shows we're just talking, Blue Bloods or something. I said, "Oh yeah. But what show did you see?" And he goes, that show where you go around Florida." I said, "Oh, wow, you saw that?" He goes, "Yeah, my wife and I were researching trips to Florida and your show came up. Now, because we watched your show, we're thinking of moving there." And I said, "Wow, that's incredible." And 2 months later, he left and moved to Florida. He now lives in Lake Worth because of the show.
Well, that's a whole separate podcast episode to talk about film tourism. We could go on for days on that one. Yeah, but that's true. That's a great story.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the Palm Beach's Student Showcase of Films, which you've been the host for a couple of years now. For those that aren't familiar with the showcase, tell us what it is and how you got involved there.
Yeah, it's actually 16 years. I grew up on that show. I've been hosting it for 16 years.
Wow.
I've been producing it and writing it and directing it now for the past 11 or 12 of those years. 11, I think. It's an incredible experience. There's so much talent coming out of Florida in the college and high school sort of age for film and TV. And people forget about Florida is that you could film there all year round, and a lot of these students get to sort of pursue their passion 365, right? 365 days a year. And the talent that's coming out of there is pretty incredible. So I got to host the show in 2000. I started in 2006. And one at the time, a producer of the show came to see my sketch comedy troupe at my theater in Florida and saw me up there, and we became friends. And he said, "I'd love to have a permanent host to the show." And that's how that happened. So for the first while, I was just hosting. I'd come in, do a few songs, host the show, and go home. And then he left to go to Los Angeles, and the Film Commission said, "Well, would you like to take it over?" And so I did. And then I kind of have turned it into more of a, I guess I would call it the Oscars of Florida, film festivals and film showcases. We do a really, really big show. The Film Commission does an incredible job. Michelle and Chuck do an incredible job of putting that on. And I basically take it from soup to nuts. I write it and I create the theme for it and do all the stage design and video and music. And we put it on every year, and it's a blast. And these kids really get to sort of shine for that time period, and it's fun for everybody. And then a lot of the county comes and shows up, and I know you've been there, and
Yep.
It's a great time. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I've been there for a couple of years, and been able to present a scholarship, and
Yeah.
the showcase has grown so much through the years. I mean, there's great scholarships that are available to these students that
Yeah.
win. The largest scholarship is named after Burt Reynolds, who was there to present for many years. The music video scholarship is named after Vanilla Ice. He's there every year. Talk about the growth from the time you came in until it is now. I mean, it's a huge deal now.
Yeah, it's become, I think we really upped the game with it in terms of making it a higher profile event. And I think when you do that, it attracts more eyeballs and more people want to be a part of it. I think we made it very sort of important, and it's a very important facet to these kids and these high school kids, but also to the area. I think to have something that big that happens every year consistently, even the last 2 years with the pandemic, doing virtual shows, we've really tried to keep it prestigious. It really is. And to have people like the late Burt Reynolds and Vanilla Ice and more. I've had friends, celebrity friends of mine come in as guests, speakers and hosts, and we've had so many great people come through. That it gives these kids sort of a feel like, I mean, can you imagine growing up, right, and having that kind of attention at the age of 15? We see these shows on television, and I got to tell you, during the last 2 years, I thought our shows were higher level productions than even the Emmys and the Oscars were. And so I think for these kids, it's a wow moment, and for the instructors and the teacher, and also I think county. The county officials come and they're blown away by it too, what we're able to put together. So it's grown because we make it important. It's important to the Film Commission. It's important to the county, certainly important to me. And I think the schools see the value of it and what it means to their kids. And that's why you have this consistent support for it year after year, because we make it that important.
And now I think if I'm remembering correctly, submissions closed in January.
Yep, 31st.
And, there's films, shorts, commercials, music videos, as we talked about, and the event is coming up. So where is the event? I think there's a new home this year, right?
There is a new home. Yeah, we always keep it in Palm Beach County. For many years, we were at different venues. We're now launching the sort of a new partnership with the Maltz Jupiter Theater, and Andrew over there. And Andrew Cato has always been a supporter of the film festival, whether it be in person or from afar. We've done, great stuff with him. We've always had the Burt Reynolds Scholarship interviews there, and he's always been great. But to be able to bring it into there now with their new renovations that they just did, it's an expanded theater. They're putting in so much. I'm actually going to be taking a tour of it very shortly. Very excited. But yeah, we're going to do it at the Maltz, and hopefully that'll be a long-standing partnership that we can take for years and years to come. It's a perfect home for it. It's the original home of Burt Reynolds, as most people know. Yeah. So it's kind of come full circle in a lot of ways. And Andrew's been great, and we love what the Maltz does. And they're such a prestigious theater in the country. I mean, they're one of the top 4 regional theaters in the country. So to have that in our backyard, in Palm Beach County, keeping it there, I think is fantastic.
And when is the event?
It's in May every year. We do it in May, usually sometimes late April, but most of the time it's in the beginning of May, near the end of the school year for a lot of these kids. It's a great way to send them off before all the graduation stuff happens.
Yeah.
And it's a great time. I mean, what better, time to do it? It's a fun time in Florida at the time. And but it's usually late April, May of every year. And it's going to hopefully happen till we can't do it anymore. And I'm sure there'll be other people that'll pick up the torch. It's a long-standing tradition. Yeah,
it's a great event. I've really enjoyed being at a few of them, and hope I can make it, going forward. So that's great. So Frank, we've talked about a lot of different things today. Where can people find out more about you, your company, everything else you're involved in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all over socials as the Frank Licari, but my website is Quite Frankly Entertainment. You can get to my personal site as well, franklicari.com, through that. And that tells you everything I'm working on a personal level with my acting, and on the production level with my writing and producing and directing. And I've, for those that go to festivals, I know we are an evergreen show, but we're at certain festivals this year, Santa Barbara and Miami, with a couple of feature films that I've created, and I did a film on Vanilla Ice. So there's a documentary on Vanilla Ice coming out that I directed and produced, and there's another one on Jose Feliciano, the 9-time Grammy winner that I used to tour with and produced. And so we're very excited for these films to come out.
And then talking about the Student Showcase of Films, you can go to the Palm Beach County Film and Television Commission website, and they have a whole section devoted to the Student Showcase of Films, which is great.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You can find all that information there. And if you're, if you've been a part of the show, tell your, brothers and sisters and friends, for next year, it'll hopefully open up, it'll be less tight than it has been the last 2 years with the pandemic. And so keep abreast on that and get your entries in there.
Absolutely. And Frank, I know how busy you are these days, talking about all the different things you have going on. I really appreciate you making time for us and being on the Film Florida podcast. Thanks so much.
Oh, absolutely. Florida's a big part of my life, so it's a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Film Florida podcast. For more information about Film Florida, go to filmflorida.org or visit our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you're not already a member of Film Florida, please consider joining at filmflorida.org. If you like what you hear on the podcast, please consider going to our website and donating $20.22 for our 2022 fundraising campaign. Check out the Film Florida merchandise at filmflorida.creator-spring.com, and please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast.